welcome back to the studio, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing this monstrous giant, the Sakusu bass sax. Now you may have seen my other video where I run through the whole Sakusu range, soprano all the way up to baritone, but I sneakily left off the bass sax and I've saved it for this specific video today. So I'm going to talk about it whilst it's just sat here in this Saxrax bass stand, pointing out a few bits and pieces, and then I'm going to give it a bit of a play. So first of all, just looking at this saxophone, what do we see? It looks like an expanded baritone sax. It's got the typical style neck here, it's just elongated. And you'll notice a spit valve here, which is very useful from the maintenance point of view. It's not going to clog up here. Just every few minutes or so you can hit this little button and it will come out. Beautiful stuff, isn't it? But very, very handily so. I really want to point out this peg that we've got going on down here. And this is a lifesaver, as you'll see in a minute when I give it a blow. So this thing is extremely heavy, as it appears to you in front of the camera right now, and it's even heavier in the case. And you can play it with a strap or a harness, which is what I'd recommend. Definitely go with a harness. And in fact, you've got 3 rings here to choose from to get the balance right. But my preference, if sitting down, would definitely be to use the peg, because it takes all the weight away from the player. You just need to get used to the balancing issue whilst it's on the peg and you're sort of moving it around in front of you, as you'll see in a minute. So this is a beautiful feature, this peg here, which is adjustable, I should point out. But the general point that I want to make about this Sakusu bass is the price tag. It's incredibly good value for money in comparison to most of the other bass saxes out there on the market. The Selmers, the Keilwerths, the more specialist ones such as the Benedict Eppelsheim basses. Now these 3 that I've mentioned there, don't get me wrong, these are fantastic instruments and there's so much going on with the engineering of these bass saxes, but they do come at a price. You know, you're often talking 15,000, 18,000, sometimes 20,000 and beyond. At the time of recording this video, this is a £4,000 bass, so incredible value for money. So we're not saying that it has the same quality as, for example, a Selmer bass sax. It could never have that quality for this price tag. But you know what? It's not too bad at all. Tone-wise, it's absolutely fantastic. It's got a very fluid feel to it, and you can move around the fingerwork without too much trouble. It perhaps has a few little shortcomings here and there, such as on the left hand, I find there's just a little bit of flex in some of the keys because the arms are so long. So the B key here, when I'm pressing the B key, there's a little bit of flex there. But when you get used to it, it actually grounds and the pad actually seats very well. It's just beyond that, there's a little bit of flex. So it's just a little issue. And again, you get used to it. Intonation, it's all there, but again, you just have to get used to little bits and pieces, such as the middle D can just be slightly fuzzy in character and I believe a little bit sharp, so you just need to get used to really lowering the jaw just to get that intonation locked in. And you just need to find your spots in that sort of middle area. You know that whole thing of playing a baritone or a bass where you tend to split notes if you're not used to it, and they can fire the octave below or above actually. And that just takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm not really a baritone or bass player, so it takes some time for me to really get into that. And then a final point to make is that whilst experimenting with mouthpieces for this instrument, I actually experimented with baritone sax mouthpieces because they fit very well on this and they seem to tune nicely with the instrument as well. We actually provide this whole setup with a Yamaha 5C, which I think actually works very well on the instrument. It's a nice warm sound, it's very fluid. Perhaps it doesn't have the sort of attack and the power that a bigger tipped baritone mouthpiece might have. But as you'll hear in a minute, I think you'll, well, hopefully hear that the sound is actually quite pleasant and has a reasonable amount of sort of oomph and power to it as well. So that's the general setup. So let's just take it off this stand and test it whilst it's on the peg. think that's great. I mean, I'm not naturally a bass player, and it really does take a little bit of getting used to the massive amount of kind of airspace you need in order to create a good sound. But immediately I found that a sort of very fluid experience. And it's perhaps just at the top end, it's just slightly weaker in tone there. I think, as I mentioned earlier on, just changing the mouthpiece to something with a bit more bite than a Yamaha 5C will just help deliver a bit more of a punch and impact in that higher register. But actually the sound is surprisingly punchy in the lower register with just a 5C. So overall, for a £4 price ticket, I think we're looking at an amazing bass sax here. And there are so many people who are probably looking to play a bass sax in some kind of playing situation, and there's no way they could afford a £20 bass sax for obvious reasons. That's a lot of money. But when you talk about this price ticket, suddenly it becomes much more of a realistic prospect. Hence why these are actually quite popular with us, and we've sold a few on that basis. So hopefully this demo will give you kind of an idea of how this could work for you, and we endeavour to always have these in stock, so please come down to our London store and give it a blow, and hope you enjoy it like I have. Thank you. Well, since shooting the video on the bass saxophone this morning, we've had a delivery from Selma, and included in that delivery is one S80 C-Style mouthpiece. So I just wanted to give you a quick flavour of this mouthpiece, which I see as an excellent choice of bass mouthpiece to add to the Sakusu bass sax. Earlier you heard the Yamaha 5C, this is now the S80 C-Style.